At the 43. And here's a little short pass to Ebner. Ebner with a first down and more! Down the sideline, out of bounds at the 15.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Pressure, Calzada steps up and delivers a throw. It's picked off! Picked off by Finley. A.J. Finley down the sidelines. Touchdown, Ole Miss, pick six.
The Sikkim 365 Radio Friday show is brought to you by Bird Culchin Ford.
Hooker over the middle, has a man, touchdown Tennessee, Devontae Payne.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Elliott is a single back. Give it to him, and he's in. Touchdown, Dallas.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Backfield for Bohannon. He'll throw it. Now steps up. Wants to run. Bohannon to the corner. Touchdown Bears. Feet don't fail me now. Gary Bohannon with his best rushing performance of the season.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Thursday afternoon as we head into another college football weekend with games tonight, NFL tonight as well, and also news in the Big 12 involving a radio broadcast crew involving Texas Tech. We'll get into that. But we will touch in, and you heard part of the highlights with what Paul put together for today. We'll have a guest that discusses the Volunteers of Tennessee at 3:30. Michigan State, Ohio State comes up this weekend. We'll have Graham Couch joins us discussing not only Mel Tucker's extension that's happening, but also Kenneth Walker III, Max Olson at 4, Mickey on the Cowboys at 4:30. Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. And also today at 5. We've been wanting to do this for a couple of days, but Todd Berry, the executive director of the AFCA, will join us at 5 o'clock on all these changes with coaches and how and what they're thinking about it at the AFCA. Jennifer Smoak, Fantasy Football, 5:30. Paul's Top 5 to close out the show. But yesterday evening, there's a lot to get to with a couple of other stories, but yesterday evening, the story came out, Texas Tech, their broadcast crew, they have been reprimanded and will not broadcast the game coming up this week against Oklahoma State. And if you heard some of the audio, for basically saying that the Big 12 wanted Iowa State to win. And kind of going past that line, even with frustration, of just accusing the Big 12 of all but throwing the game. I've known Brian Jensen. We've known him for quite some time. John Harris for quite some time. But your thoughts about, should the Big 12 have done this?
Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of have to. I mean, you can't have a broadcast. Like, the thing is, if you don't, then the Big 12 is going to be like, yeah, well, you caught us. That kind of that's how it looks. But you also, as a broadcaster, you have to it's good to share opinions, but in a play-by-play situation, that's not really what your job is necessarily, is to do a full-on talk show. And you're supposed to be delivering the play-by-play. And, when you let your emotions and your opinion get the better of you, it's not going to be good. And look, are the officials, not only in the Big 12, but around the country, not doing the best job they can be doing? Yeah. But I don't think that is in any way, shape, or form because some sort of fix is in. I think that's more just based on poor training and too many rules, moreover than somebody wants somebody else to win.
Yeah, I mean, I heard the audio after, it was put out last night. And, there are definitely games you watch in the Big 12 and you just kind of scratch your head and you go, what's really going on here? I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I've never had that thought cross my mind, but I ultimately just come back to reality and, think about the fact that they're just making calls out there. I mean, if you want to look for an ulterior motive, it's pretty easy to convince yourself that there is one. And those guys obviously convinced themselves that there was one and listening to that because they were railing and they were harping and they were going to town on those officials. And I think when they started naming them, that's really where you crossed a certain line where you started naming those guys off individually. I think that just the amount of time that it went on, it was like, I mean, they wouldn't let it go. And obviously there were a lot of controversial calls in that game, I guess, and things that just didn't sit right with Texas Tech fans. But, yeah, as broadcasters, get your shot in if you want to. But they obviously kept going far too much to that well and really made the broadcast, from what the excerpt sounded like it was more about that than the actual game in some cases. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lesson learned, as somebody said, and I think this is the best way to put it. Those guys sounded like they had a bad day at the office, and that happens. And, I'm sure they'll learn from it, and they'll be pros and come back and, do a good job when they return. But
and they'll return against Baylor.
And I could, yeah, I mean, that's not going to affect Baylor anyway. But, yeah, they will return against Baylor. And, I think I can see where Bob Bowlesby's coming from, especially when he's being named and his officials are being named and they're outright saying they're throwing this game for, the opponent. I mean, there's a certain line eventually that you cross, and they crossed it.
Well, here's what the officials' names are known. A lot of times you'll even see a graphic on a television broadcast. A lot of times, most broadcasters that I know will name the crew from start down, and sometimes some will even record, like they'll get the crew off to the corner before a game, well before a game, and get them to say their name and where they're from. But it was the way that they specifically went back to that. And I think if you're probably doing that, and I'm not going to speak for them, is you're probably hoping that maybe at some point Tech fans start to flood their email box or whatever they are on social media. We've seen that with John Huggins, with the Kentucky fans or whoever it was, who's a lifelong official, been around forever, done nothing but big games, including a horrible call that Baylor fans will never, until the day they die, get over against Duke. But I have this opinion. I do think at times the Big 12 has some crews. I forgot what game it was, maybe a couple of games or two ago, but it just seemed like TCU game. Like there were 7 consecutive penalty flags. It was a sloppy game in a lot of ways, even though it ended up being dramatic. I've always been of the opinion, and a lot of times people get frustrated with me on Twitter if I don't, and on occasion I'll say something, especially like, how come there's a replay if there's it's 1st and 10, a guy gains 8 yards and they want to see if he gained 9. That's ridiculous. But to me, you muddy the waters, you get it away from the game. Could you be frustrated? Heck, if you're a fan, you're getting paid by Learfield IMG. Of course, that's a part of the Texas Tech broadcast. I get all that, but it just muddies the game. Getting into one call, and next thing you know, a timeline continues. It's all you hear about is the officiating. There's a game to be played. You got to get past it. And I think that a lot of things have been going on. You've had a coach fired. You've had a new one hired. You've had guys leave the program. It's a frustrating time, but I do think that they probably, I don't know about being canceled for a game. I don't know about that. The reprimand's one thing. But that 254-339-1122, your thoughts and feedback on it, because we have some Tech fans that watch us and listen to us. Give us your thoughts as well. Let me go over a couple of other college football notes. Frank Harris today was asked about whether he was coming back, and on his Twitter feed said he's coming back for another year, the quarterback at UT San Antonio. And speaking of which, Frank Harris is a part of a list of the semifinalists of the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award that was released this afternoon. Craig is a part of that. I am as well. Cindy Smoak a part of that as well, among many others. Gary Bohannon and also Abram Smith are on the list. Bijan Robinson of Texas is on the list. Tanner Mordecai, who played football at Midway High School and now SMU, is on the list, among others. And it's a heck of a list. 2 Ohio State wide receivers, Kennedy Brooks at Oklahoma, a couple of the underknown names that people don't hear enough about. We've talked about Jarrett Stearns at Western Kentucky, and others as well. So the list is out, and it's up on the Earl Campbell, the Campbell Award Twitter feed as well. USC quarterback Jackson Dart makes his first start against UCLA coming up this weekend. They've had so many issues with their quarterback. And Justin Ross, who was a star as a freshman at Clemson, foot surgery is out. He will now enter the NFL draft. I thought he was going to be an absolute megastar after the first time I saw him his freshman year.
Well, and he was last year, too. I mean, he was a fantastic player last year. But this year, injured most of the year, never really got into it. Part of the many problems that they had at Clemson this year, offensive line, quarterback didn't hit, a lot of things going on at Clemson. And I don't think they'll be down long, but I also didn't think Florida or Miami or Nebraska or Michigan or whoever else has had periods would be down long. So if Dabo Swinney's not careful, this could be the beginning of the dark years.
Yeah, I mean, they've been average for a year out of like 7 in a row where they were in the playoffs. Yeah. So I'm not going to, get too concerned about them going into the dark ages after one bad season. I do think there's a lot for Clemson to have to address, though, this offseason, and if they do, I think they will be fine. But, it's been a down year. Not surprised that Justin Ross would enter the draft given the circumstances. Really good player. Going back to the Earl Award thing, I don't think a lot of people watching, because we're talking to a lot more people than outside the state of Texas, know the difference in that award from any other. But the Earl Campbell Award, which Earl is directly involved with, is given to the best player in D1 college football from the state of Texas or who plays in the state of Texas. So if you're a guy like a Bijan Robinson, you're from Arizona, but you play at UT, so you're technically part of the award. You can be Garrett Wilson, who plays at Ohio State, but you're originally from Austin, and so you're up for the award. So either play in Texas or you're from Texas and played high school there. And so, there's a 16-man semifinalist list, and the state produced some really good talent this year. There's no doubt about that. And not only is that going on, a lot of these other awards are naming semifinalists, but the Senior Bowl today for Baylor, 3 guys being named to the Senior Bowl list. So it's going to be fun to see all these awards getting handed out and all the guys who get mentioned. But I'm really happy with the Earl list and think it's a solid group, and I'm not sure who the favorite is right now.
All right, so 254-339-1122. I'll have a note about Mack Brown at North Carolina in a moment, and what he says is a rumor that was started by some super agent. We're going to hear a comment from Nick Saban. We'll jump in on Tennessee at 3:30. They have a team that's going to probably be bowl eligible, even though they got beaten by Georgia. Well, everybody else who's played Georgia has done that as well. Aaron Wilson, other Tech fans are out on the chat room. We'll get to some of your comments as well. All right, Paul?
All right, let's go to Tyler in Cincinnati on the BetUS caller line. Thanks for your call.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Great. Thank you.
So I had a quick question, and this is just me kind of spitballing, thinking about all the open coaching jobs. What do you guys think about Tom Herman possibly going to TCU? Is it possible? Because I think it could be. I mean, he has some roots in Texas, and, he didn't do the best job in Austin, but I feel like Tom Herman would thrive in a kind of a smaller athletic department like TCU. Not that TCU is small, but I just kind of feel like he'll probably have a better time there, if that makes any sense to you guys at all.
Well, while I do think that, and Tyler, I think that that's valid, in that Tom Herman, the next place he goes to, like, he was really successful at Houston, but he still had some of the same things. The guys that, on the Houston radio said something he didn't agree with, and he called into the show mad about him when he shouldn't care. It wasn't like they were spreading lies. It's just an opinion he didn't care for. And I think, I don't know. I think it might be a good fit for Tom Herman at TCU, except for the fact that most of the time, if you go from one personality type, you maybe change up a little bit, and they just got rid of a guy who's super high-strung and paranoid. I don't know if you want to go back down that road.
Yeah, I mean, I brought up Tom Herman the other day, and hearing all these coaching carousel rumors, I was like, where's this guy being mentioned? Because why not? I mean, you're digging around for coaching names, and there's obviously too many jobs for candidates that are worthy, that are just like the up-and-comers. I mean, there's not 12, 13, 14 up-and-comers that are ready to, to fill these roles. So you're going to have some retread somewhere, and that's why Herman, being off at the NFL, maybe maturing a little bit and getting his act together, not being as kind of immature as he was while at Texas. He seemed like a guy that would make sense to come back to the college game. TCU, I think, is a little bit too big of a step to return to, though. I think that they're locked in on Sonny Dykes, it appears. And if that doesn't work out, although there's no reason to believe that it won't really, because we're not hearing too much pushback as far as that goes. It's just really quiet, actually. If that doesn't work out, I mean, they have to pivot and go a different direction. Maybe that would open the door, but I don't think he would be, their first choice. For part of the reason that Paul mentioned, I don't think the fan base would be real receptive to that either. I know I wouldn't be if I was a TCU fan. It would feel like too much of a retread. I don't know how much he fits there. You know what I mean? I don't know how the pairing would work. Maybe it would work great. I don't know. But, I mean, he's a nice idea for somebody somewhere, but I just don't think TCU would be the right one.
I don't know. It's interesting. He was the hot guy.
It's a good idea. I mean, it's an interesting idea.
Justin Fuente was the hot coordinator, right? And then all of a sudden he's out. And you got to be careful about grabbing these coordinators just because they're on teams that are successful and you think it's them. Right now, UT's got Sarkisian. He's been a head coach before, so he's got that. It wasn't a great run where he's been at Washington or USC. He got a job because he was the offensive coordinator, hell of an offensive coordinator for the best team in the country. And you see these hot coordinators, like you're Alex Grinch, or you might hear one day soon Jeff Grimes or whoever it is. And sometimes you're just trying to hit lightning in a bottle. I think Herman could be a head coach. There's no question. He's been a head coach. He was pretty good at Houston. But I wonder if now that's where he wants to get back in the Big 12 or if he wants to go somewhere else away from the state of Texas.
Well, Washington's a job. He's, there's at least some articles, some buzz out there about him in Washington potentially. I think it's a matter of time before he gets back into a head coaching role somewhere. Is it this quickly at a big job? I don't know. But, I mean, he's a name that floating out you got to pay attention to and think about a little bit. So, I'd say low percentage chance he would end up at TCU. But, hey, if Sonny Dykes ends up sticking around in Dallas, then who knows? That might be the direction they go.
Yeah, and if you're a running back at any school that Tom Herman goes to, you may want to transfer.
Yeah, probably.
He'll forget
All right.
about you.
I agree. 254-339-1122 on the chat room from a Frog fan. No.
See.
No is what he said. He did not want. Was that the text line, actually? It might have been the text line. Right? Let's see here. Yeah, that was from the Steve Frog fan. No, with like 9 O's.
Yeah,
on Herman, let's go with Sonny Dykes.
After Gary Patterson and what he did, and as long as he was there, I mean, this is a really important hire. And if you were to turn around and hire Tom Herman after dumping Gary Patterson, I just don't think your fan base would sit well with that at all. So, I think it's probably Sonny Dykes or bust, like we've been saying. But again, if they have to pivot, if something were to happen, I mean, I don't know what direction that would send them. But you would think that the list couldn't be too long for some. I mean, not even just TCU specifically, but for some of the teams that they strike out. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you start having to look at the Tom Hermans of the world. And he'll be an interesting guy to kind of see where his career trajectory takes him after this little stint in the NFL.
Well, And what I said on running backs, now you don't do this to placate one player, but Zach Evans is your best player on the TCU roster.
No, he's not.
Well,
no, he's not. I don't think so. I don't think he's the best player on the roster. I think he is one of the most overrated players in college football. I think he is a tremendous talent, but I think there's been some off the field stuff where he's just not. I'm not saying he's a bad kid by any means because I don't know him, but there's always like a little something bubbling there. You know what I mean? It's like he was playing this year, and the whole time there was rumors about transfers and him being at practice or cleaning out his locker or whatever. There's that, and I think you could deal with that because there's some kids that sort of, there's just issues, and that's fine. So not saying he's a bad seed at all, but there's little things like that, and then you combine it with the fact that their best win all year took place without him. Mm-hmm. He's missed half the season. He's been, quite frankly, irrelevant to them this year.
Well, there was an argument, it was a discussion, and Craig knows this, on the Earl Campbell-Tyler Rose Award on the semifinalists, and I didn't think Zach Evans should be a part of the list.
No, absolutely not.
He has missed a lot of games. He hadn't played enough. His numbers, at times, he's been spectacular, but I mean, 1 or 2 games. It's the same thing when we said and it's been released about Marvin Mims. His game against Texas alone was phenomenal. He's had like 2 games. Last week he had 2 or 3 catches and has just disappeared with 28 catches, 20 yards a pop, 4 touchdowns, and that's kind of just being real. As good as he seems to be, he has not really had much of a year as well. So and the quarterback situation might have had something to do with that.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. So Zach Evans, I think Quentin Johnston's the best player offensively for TCU. If anything, Zach Evans is right there, just based on God-given talent, but he's done nothing this year and hasn't really been a part of that team or their biggest wins. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get on a tangent on him, but we did. So,
yeah. All right, 254-339-1122. One comment from Herman from Cameron. I don't think Herman did bad at Texas. Took him to a Big 12 championship game. Beat Georgia. Let me say this again. UT manhandled a Kirby Smart coach team at Georgia. And, of course, we know Georgia and their response to that. They didn't want to be there. You know what? If you have a damn game, play the game. And play it with passion. Paul?
And I just think, let's go to T-Rex on the BetUS caller line. I had a thought there but lost it. All right, T-Rex, go ahead.
Hey, guys, I just want to call in and wish the greatest producer in internet radio history a happy birthday. I'm sure the Armstrong Army is going to throw him a great party, and I hear there's even going to be an appearance by Baylor Bigfoot there. So, little kids, they like to see Spider-Man and Superman. Armstrong wants to see a giant man dressed up like a Bigfoot, apparently. But, hey, who am I to judge? I dress up for football games, so, I can't judge. But, yeah, man, happy birthday. Keep up the hard work, Armstrong, and just congrats to, the new hires there at 365 and more content there. And also this weekend, we are not going to E-Mall. There will be no men a Wildcat. All right, every man a Bear. It's going to be E-Ball. All right, sick 'em Bears, Bears by 90 on Saturday.
Thank you, T-Rex. Appreciate the call. 254-339-1122. I think it's going to be a street fight in Manhattan, Kansas. Mac Brown denied a rumor that he was retiring. He says he feels like it's from some sort of an agent from other teams that are trying to get North Carolina's what right now I think is a top 10 recruiting class to have some problems keeping people before now and signing day.
Man, that's a pretty big dart to throw back. When it says, hey, is there any truth to the rumors you're retiring? And then most coaches are like, nah, that's it. Mac Brown's like, no, I'm not, and here's where that rumor came from.
Yeah, he said he was informed by that from a friend of his, and I'm sure he's got guys high up the food chain as well. Now, Nick Saban yesterday, Alabama's getting ready for Arkansas. Arkansas's in the top 25, and they've been one of the fun stories. I think they've been one of the fun stories in college football with what they've done with Coach Pittman with early wins that they've had against both Texas and also A&M. So Nick Saban was asked about the practices this week, and I could just listen to him forever. But this is just a minute and a half or so, not even that long, when you'll hear the question as well about how practices have gone this week for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, we've talked about practice intensity all season. How would you assess the way they practiced this week?
Yesterday was okay. Today we got a lot of guys that had to pour me's, whatever that means. So, get into your feelings and you don't do things the way you need to do them to have success. And when you get that way, you don't create good habits, and it's not a good thing. It's not something that we can accept, and it's something we got to do a better job of.
The poor me's. And how often, you can tell he was trying to maybe think about what he was going to say. He's trying to okay, what do I need to say right here? I just love listening to him sometimes when he's talking. When he gets a little bit ornery, a little of that grouchiness in him.
The best part about that was that he was actually holding back.
Yes.
I mean, so he wasn't like people, there's going to be people who are like, man, he really laid the boom on him. And he kind of did, but you could see, like you said, the tapping, he was like, okay, how do I say this without going, I'm really upset about the way we practiced. I'm beside myself with rage, but I don't let you people see me like that.
Yeah, he has a way of saying things, and it means something whenever he says anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all for Saban as president of this country, quite frankly. I mean, I really would.
Yeah.
He cuts through the BS. He doesn't put up with all these lame excuses over every little thing. I definitely think he's compassionate enough to know when there is legitimate reason to for someone to have the poor me's. But, when there's not, he calls it out on that. He's just very matter of fact, straight to the point. I know he's widely hated because when you're that good, you're going to be hated no matter what you do because you've beaten way too many people. Like you've beaten everybody. They're all going to hate you. But I think the way he just cuts through and gets straight to the point without getting lost in all of the minutia and BS that you can get lost in, I love it, and I like hearing him talk.
I'm going back to Craig. I want to comment on Craig. Saban being the president would be great because what politicians can't do now is point out what's actually wrong. You just got to blame the enemy. Nick Saban doesn't have that button. His button is, what's the problem? If there's a leak in the floor, then we're going to plug the leak. We're not going to blame, the water company. We're going to plug the leak.
If Saban was like, any of our politicians, then every time Alabama lost, he would blame Auburn, even if Auburn had absolutely nothing to do with it. That's what he would do. And thankfully, he's not like our politicians, and he just, addresses what's in front of him and what's going on with his team. But, yeah, he's a joy to listen to. He looks like he said earlier this year he's going to be coaching for a while longer. I think that's great for college football.
A couple of notes about the Texas Tech radio broadcast team from responses from you. One of them, I received this a text. The problem with officiating in general is that there is no accountability. They don't talk to the press. They're not reprimanded for bad calls, or you don't hear about it unless it's really, really bad. They are not infallible, but in all leagues they are treated that way. Here's one from also
the NFL. They talk to the press.
From Cameron. There's a pool reporter.
Yeah.
Cameron, unless there's a system in place to hold referees accountable and make them be consistent with their calls or no calls, I don't see the issue with calling them out. I don't see an issue with making a comment or two, but when you start, they lost control of the broadcast. And I hate it for Brian. I hate it for John. I do. But it kind of went down that rabbit hole.
I agree with you. And if it's egregious, like you say something, but when you dwell on it and you just the whole broadcast, at least the excerpt, sound like it was about just that. That's where they went sideways, like naming off the officials at the end, not like you traditionally do in the beginning. You know what you're doing, you name them towards the end of the game because there's no reason ever to really name them towards the end of the game. And if you're naming one, you're saying like, oh, the head of officiating, Walt so-and-so is coming up for the call. That's the way you might do it. Naming off all the guys, you would never do that. There would be no reason to ever do that late in the game, in a game like that. So that was very intentional. And I am, like I said, with you on as far as officials don't need to be completely criticism-free. I'm with the first guy, or the first texter, as far as there needs to be some level of accountability because there is zero. There is zero accountability. Now, there might be behind the scenes, but as far as what the public sees, we see nothing. Guys just make bad calls, and then we see them and they're on our TV again on Saturday like nothing ever happened, and they got no punishment for it. If you at least made that a more transparent process, I think fans could swallow that pill a little bit easier. But when you see these guys making bad calls, and then you see them again the next week doing the same thing, and the next week doing the same thing, yeah, you have a reason to go, what the hell's going on right here?
Players have stats. Coaches have wins and losses. So do programs. And sometimes you'll see a conference come out and release something that's a mistake or whatever, but it's very rare. One of the things that someone asked about if they've ever heard of announcers being reprimanded, I'll give you a little bit of a personal story here. In 1994, the John Tyler High School team, Earl Campbell's alma mater, although he had played there 20-plus years earlier than that, they played against Plano East in that famous game. Good gosh almighty, Friday, whatever, and it was 48-44. John Tyler won the game when Rod Dunn ran a kickback for a touchdown in the last 20 seconds of the game or whatever it was. JT blew a lead, a big lead. It was 41-17. Next thing you know, they're losing 44-41. Onside kicks being recovered. But during that broadcast, the John Tyler team at the time, the broadcast team at KZEY and Tyler, started to go down that same type of hole when you're talking about officiating, holding calls, whatever else. They were blowing the lead. They were getting frustrated. I got a call from the Diamond Shamrock Network, which handled the postseason rights to the playoff games. Doesn't mean local radio couldn't do the games, but you had to kind of also go through them to let them know you were doing the game, and they had these commercials you have to run. Well, they called me. I did the opposite. The arch rival across town where Jennifer went to school at Lee High School. And they said, hey, are you available to do the John Tyler broadcast this week? I said, do you want my house to still exist? Because that's a huge rivalry. They were competitors. I ended up doing their last 3 games of the season because the broadcast team was somewhat quietly reprimanded, but basically said, you need to fix it and do it right. They eventually, against their will, called me. We met. We did the last 3 games for them. It was a great run. I love what they did with that station and how we were able to watch JT eventually win a state championship. But that happened very quietly. And then it was public. Everyone knew about that story as well. So I wanted to share that. So it has happened before, and that's at a very small level. All right, when we come back, Tennessee, Adam Sparks, Knoxville, News Sentinel. The Volunteers on the verge of a bowl game, a bowl season with Josh Heupel, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco. They have a 48-foot walk-in humidor filled with the best cigars around the world. Elite cigars, Macanudo, Arturo Fuente, and so much more. Also, Padron and Cohiba. Right now, new cigars arriving every day, including Cohiba, the Nicaragua, and Cohiba, Connecticut. Our humidor, their humidor, is loaded right now, as it has been, of course, for a couple of different years. More than full for you to buy Christmas gifts or just if you like to smoke cigars yourself. Also, holiday coffees have arrived. Coffees make great gifts for anyone inside of a stocking or any kind of gift bag. They have that as well. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, also with CBD products, including Vita Dreams, a gummy if you want, right before you, or an hour before you go to bed. Take a nibble of it and you fall asleep quicker and save the tossing and turning because you have so much on your mind. It's Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me.
Refinance your vehicle today at Genco with rates as low as 1.69% for 48 months and have 90 days of no payments. Refinancing can lower your payment, so you pay less for your car. Apply online and get an additional 0.1% off our already low rate. Thank you, Genco. And don't forget, your vote counts. Vote today for your local school to win $1,500 with Genco's School Spirit Competition. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It's the Black Friday sales event going on now. Come see the beautiful, elegant third-row seat Jeep Grand Cherokee L in stock at Allen Samuels. The 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo or Limited has total values of $3,500 or 0% for 72 months going on now and no payments for 90 days. First responders get an extra $500 cash. Allen Samuels, located at 201 West Loop 340 in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Call us on the Bet US hotline, 254-339-1122.
All right, we'll hear from Adam Sparks here momentarily. Knoxville News Sentinel, beat writer for Tennessee, the Volunteers football team, with Josh Heupel, the head coach. Also today, we'll hear from Graham Couch, who covers Michigan State as they get ready for Ohio State, and have a Heisman Trophy candidate and running back Kenneth Walker III as well. Tennessee, of course, is trying to get back to that big room. They were there for a long, long time, and it's been a tough run. They're 5-5 this year, just lost to Georgia, but everybody has. And now they have an on-conference game coming up to get themselves bowl eligible. We're joined by Adam Sparks, Knoxville News Sentinel. Adam, was this the minimum ceiling, or I guess the floor, to be bowl eligible with Josh Heupel, or is this ahead of the curve?
No, I mean, this is somewhere in the middle. I remember when I did my preseason predictions, I thought they would go 7-5. I think most others probably said 6-6. They're going to finish 7-5. It looks like they'll win this week, probably beat Vanderbilt next week. And considering where they were, they got ravaged by the transfer portal. They did not return a whole lot. They were not good last year. They had a lot of quarterback questions that they had to get solved early in the year. I think 7-5 is probably the ceiling, and I will say that at 5-5 right now, that they're better than what 5-5 looks like. Had a chance to beat Ole Miss, should have beat Pitt. Had they already found their quarterback by then, they would have. I will say their outlook, their trajectory over the next few years probably is better than 5-5 because they have one of the better offenses in the country right now, and if you can find anything that you're really good at with a new coach, that's more than most teams can ask for.
How much has Danny White changed things in the Tennessee athletic department, albeit in a very short span?
Well, I mean, he's trying to. I think the big cloud that's hanging over Tennessee is the NCAA violations that they allegedly occurred under Jeremy Pruitt. They've got an investigation that they just wrapped up internally here in the last couple of weeks. They're still waiting on the NCAA to come back with their findings. So I would say Danny White certainly has potential to change a lot of things, and he's already announced a number of facility upgrades that were put in motion a little bit before he came. He's trying to change a lot of things in the athletic department in terms of ticketing and modernizing a number of things that they have. But it's on hold. I mean, he's on pause. If the NCAA comes back and says, we're going to slap you on the wrist, then he can move forward with a lot of things he wants to do. If they come back with major probation, then there's not a whole lot that Danny White can do to push the football program forward.
Adam, what has the experience with Josh Heupel been like? I mean, you talked about Danny White and also expectations, but just his fit in the Tennessee program, the thoughts when he was hired versus now. What's been the reaction from the fan base as far as Heupel's version of the Vols?
Well, I mean, he needed to convince the fan base that he was the right guy. They've been, this has been a number of coaches now since Phil Fulmer that haven't been up to snuff. I mean, Lane Kiffin was loved here for a few months, and then he skipped town, and ever since then, everybody's trying to improve on what they had, and nobody's really hit the mark very well. Heupel was, his personality is so different than his offense. His offense is electric and exciting and all that. His personality is sort of just ho-hum, and that's you have to put out a winning brand of football to sort of overcome that. And so far, UT fans have liked that. I mean, if you win at Tennessee, they don't really care what your personality is. They'll sort of mold their opinion around that. I mean, Phil Fulmer was not a charismatic guy, but he won a national championship. So if Heupel wins, they'll love him, and they like him pretty well so far.
So Hooker, the quarterback, he is senior. I don't know if he's got one of those COVID years left or not. What's the status for them at quarterback in the quarterback room going forward?
Yeah, he's got 1 year left if he chooses to use it. I would advise him to do that. I don't think he's a really, really good pro prospect right now. He's top 10 in the country in passer rating. Every time that I tweet out his updated stats, I get a lot of likes from UT fans. I get far more response though from Virginia Tech fans because this is the age of the transfer portal quarterback, and that's a guy that Hendon Hooker started 15 games there, was serviceable but was never developed, and then he comes to Tennessee and he's one of the top, arguably I'd say one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the SEC, and that leaves a lot of Virginia Tech fans vexed.
Adam, you mentioned the coaches over the years and how that has kind of disrupted things. Was part of the problem that they did not have an AD, like they had Philip Fulmer, and he was trying to run the athletic department like a coach instead of an athletic director?
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of leadership changes, president, chancellor, athletic director over this past decade. The move to bring in Phil Fulmer as the athletic director and then to hire Jeremy Pruitt was, it was a mistake because the idea was, we'll bring in a Tennessee guy, a football guy, and he'll fix everything. But the age of the former coach being a successful AD, I think that era ended probably about 20 years ago. And there are exceptions where it works out, but it rarely does. And I think if Tennessee could do it again, they would not have brought him in because you're just spinning your tires at that point. And Jeremy Pruitt obviously was not the right guy for a number of reasons, and they may be paying for that here soon with whatever the penalties are for the violation.
Yeah, is that a major reason it's hurt recruiting? Is that cloud? Because Baylor, we covered Baylor. They had that. People used it against them, although eventually at the end there really wasn't much there that was taken away. I mean, more the delay was probably their probation than anything else.
Sure. I mean, Tennessee is typically in the top 10 in recruiting classes. They're at 31 right now. Josh Heupel has never been known as a really good recruiter. He does have a staff he put together to recruit well, but if you're outside the top 30 at Tennessee, there's got to be more reasons than just the head coach is not a great recruiter. And the NCAA violations are the biggest reason for that. That's being used against them, which I wouldn't blame any school for doing that. One little caveat I'll say, though, is I think Josh Heupel's system, his offense, and even his defense right now is probably better suited for transfer portal guys than it is developmental freshmen. And so that they may find an escape clause here a little bit, that if they're docked some initial signees, they'll maybe be able to make that up with transfer portal guys. Most of their better dynamic players in offense this year have been guys that got out of the portal.
Adam, what's it been like to see them go through this schedule? On paper, one of the toughest schedules in the SEC in the entire country. I mean, how much optimism does that also give? Not only the fact that they're likely going to get bowl eligible this weekend and then maybe even get a 7th win against Vandy to close out the regular season, but they're doing it against a really tough slate of games this year.
Yeah, there's optimism for what the best has looked like, which has been times where they've, they lead the country right now in number of plays per minute. They're the best up-tempo offense in the country, and they can score really quick. People love to see that. They see the potential in that. There's still a little bit of what could have been because the Ole Miss game was a toss-up at the end. There were a couple things that went against them and a couple of bad calls. They should have won that one. Again, if they had found their quarterback earlier, they started Joe Milton, the Michigan transfer, early in the year. Had they started Hooker early in the year, they probably would have been beat Pitt, and that's 2 top 25 wins that you could have had. So if you're the pessimist, you could say what could have been, but I think most Tennessee fans think that will be in future years. They'll finish off games like that.
Adam Sparks, Knoxville News Sentinel on the Vols. The stretch that Tennessee has been in, very similar to what we've seen with some other blue blood programs. We've discussed it. It's got to be frustrating, right? The SEC is very good. We know that, and they really aren't a part of that conversation. Are they just fed up of not winning?
Well, I mean, it's been so long now that I grew up in this state in Tennessee, and they won the national title in '98, and then every year after that, you say, well, they could do it again because they did it in '98, and it's a lot of years since then. And I know I talked to some students at Alabama the other day, some journalism students, and one comment they made to me was, "How does it feel to cover a football team where the program has never been successful?" Because these are kids that are 20 years old and they don't know anything that happened before they were born. And that's sort of the take now. For a number of years, you could go out and recruit at Tennessee and say, hey, we won a national title here. We can do it again. Come to Tennessee. Now you're recruiting kids that were not alive last time that happened. So the farther you get from it, I think the more thoughts that creep into Tennessee fans' minds of, will that ever happen again? And I don't know.
As a person who was a freshman at Florida State University in 1998, that comment by your students hurts me.
Yeah, I bet
there's a number of teams on that list, and when Texas gets into the conference, that'll be a question there too. It was once, will it ever be again? No
question. Tennessee, Texas, Nebraska, among many others. Adam, thank you very much from the Knoxville News Sentinel on Tennessee. Appreciate your time. They're a win away from a bowl eligibility under Josh Heupel as the head coach. Coming up next, one of the best games perhaps this weekend, Ohio State and Michigan State. And we'll have Graham Couch. We've had him on before to talk about Kenneth Walker III and their season. And we'll do that next. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Pioneers still in pipe, 1943, been in business, but had their doors open since that time, and continue to bring quality customer service and product. If you have one or the other, and then you have both, you're going to be in business since 1943. They understand the way that you want. You want to be like, you feel like you're the only one in that business or in that building as they talk to you, and yet you know there are many others because they have great product and have since 1943. Pioneer still in pipe with pipe and steel, metal, heavy-duty equipment, and they will deliver it to the site, whatever it might be, your home, your ranch, or even commercial, and unload it for you as well. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan. Brand new building, not building, but a huge facility, a beautiful place being built in Waco, but they will never lose sight of what they need, and that means product and great customer service for you. 1943, and they're thriving at Pioneer Steel and Pipe, pioneerboys.com.
It's Baylor football season, and as always, Berg Colgin Ford supports the green and gold. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgin Ford. It's time for team celebrations and BU touchdowns. Berg Colgin Ford is your home team when it comes to trucks and tailgates. Ford has the perfect truck for you to host a top-ranked tailgate party. Here's to a winning season for our hometown Bears. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Buying made simple at BK Ford. Sick 'em Bears.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
So recently, a northern transplant in our fair city came in to pick up outfitters for the first time, and he was starstruck. He told us that truck accessories were not needed in Illinois. I know, pick your jaw up off the ground. An entire state full of trucks driving around completely nude. Then he said he saw the light when he moved to Texas and found that in Texas, truck accessories were a necessity. I don't know about a necessity, but Texans have a whole different attitude about their trucks, and they give them their rightful place as a family member. I mean, what exactly do you use your truck for if you're not going to put anything on it? All this is a warning for the good people of Central Texas to stay diligent. Don't let your truck look like it came from up north. Put something on that truck, for goodness sakes. A bumper, a lift kit, some running boards. At Pickup Outfitters, we know what your truck needs. So come and see us at 220 Lake Erie Drive in Waco, or check us out on the web at createacommotion.com.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
It has been a heck of a year for Michigan State Sparty, and they have Ohio State coming up. Graham Couch, Lansing State Journal, covers the Spartans. Joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports, and man, this is a measuring stick, no question about it. Graham, it's been a great run, and obviously the first story today or this week has been what Mel Tucker, the extension. Where is Michigan State getting all of that money, and is that going to be pretty much all donor driven?
Yeah, the extra money is all donor driven. It's basically 2 guys who are chipping in $4 million annually to take him from about $5.5 million, which is already the 3rd highest in the Big Ten, to $9.5 million, which would be currently the 2nd highest in the country, just behind Nick Saban. So the school does not have that. It would have been, there's just no way they could have paid that out of their own budget. It would have been not just bad optics, but you got a situation where you've got faculty being asked to volunteer in dining halls where they're short staffed and things like that. You couldn't come up with $4 million out of any budget, university budget, without it being donor based.
Yeah, it's kind of weird they can't get those donations for the dining halls either, Graham. But yeah, we know what's really important. Is there any concern that, while I think, I'm not trying to knock Mel Tucker, but this is based on 1 year of performance?
Oh, absolutely. I think, there's no question. I think part of this is the fear of regret. A lot of this is they've been through this with Nick Saban 22 years ago and lost him to LSU largely because of a disagreement between him and the school president and their unwillingness to give him some of the resources and promises they had made him and finances. And Saban didn't really want to leave, and they lost him. And they've seen how delicate it is with Mark D'Antonio when they got to a certain level, but they weren't really competing on an apples to apples level of resources with some of the schools that they were competing with on the field when they got to their highest points under D'Antonio. And I think they realized that. And what's happened is there's been this buzz created, and there's an energy and there's an emotion, and the top donors in the school recognize an opportunity, and they want to chase it. When the details come out of this, I would be surprised, however, if like the 10 years is really something the school is on the hook for, and if Mel Tucker doesn't have ways out if he wants, I would guess, a lot of the length of the deal is certainly something that's a little bit of a mirage.
So, Graham, I mean, obviously he was being mentioned, particularly with LSU. He seemed like their number one target just based on, Twitter rumor mills and whatnot. But what's been the reaction of the fan base to the news yesterday? Is there a new calm there? Is there a little bit less stress? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, people are waiting for him to sign it. I think that'll be the big calm for some people. And there are some people, there's always a mixed reaction. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there are some people that don't think, that he's making double what Tom Izzo makes, more than that at Michigan State. And there's some people that think this is just a little out of whack, and what priority should it be, and what you ought to pay a football coach. The problem is at Michigan State, and I wrote about this today, is that, if Alabama or Ohio State want to make that statement, Alabama or Ohio State could say, we think coaching salaries are ridiculous. We're not going to pay a coach more than $1 million or whatever it is. And you might start a new trend. People might say, that's reasonable. And you'd still get a really good coach. At Michigan State, all that happens is you lose your coach, you might start losing football, and then that starts becoming costly in other ways. Mm-hmm. And so it's not a place where you can make that stand. You either have to decide you want to compete at a certain level or not. And frankly, this isn't. I don't think the school itself would not have been able to do this without the donors. And, they've been trying to do some stuff donor-based for a little while in terms of how they present themselves to recruits and private planes and recruiting and things like that. That sort of are on par with the top of the SEC, because those things, as much as the salary, I think really matter to Mel Tucker and trying to build us there.
Does it look like he's always angry at the world and just intense as hell? Has he got a little bit of a pussycat in him somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you have a one-on-one conversation with him. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And people will tell you that. And, I think there's no doubt he's, in press conferences, he's a little, he's very focused and not always all that revealing, and that doesn't really get very playful. And he and I have actually had, probably our first run-in was based on that. I kind of wanted more from him, and because I see his real personality. I've had one-on-ones with him. I know, you see it in other videos. You know what he can be, and you're like, just what? Come on, man! Like, and he didn't appreciate it. So but yeah, no, there's no doubt that he's. I mean, I think he's. He presents a very careful side of himself when he's talking to large groups of press. Certainly.
We're talking to Graham Couch. He covers Michigan State, Lansing State Journal. They have Ohio State this weekend.
Well, he did very well with the portal this year. Graham, how well do you think he'll do with regular signees, guys who haven't been in the portal yet?
Yeah, no, he's had a good start to this next class. It's got more 4-star kids than they've had since 2016. Which was an amazing class that wound up being a total disaster. But as a class, it was a 10 4-star class. And, so the things have gone well to that point. They've got a few scholarships available. But a lot of the top kids thereafter are, you're looking at 2022 kids. So, and I did a story, a few weeks ago on just some of those kids were saying. And there's no doubt they've taken notice. Whether they ultimately commit, it's hard to say. But when you're winning like they are, I think he's an engaging coach to recruit. I think there's a lot to pay attention to, and so we'll see. But that's the reason they pay. I mean, the reason they paid $5.5 million to get him out of Colorado, and the reason they gave him a $6 million pool for assistance initially was they believed he could elevate the recruiting and go head to head with some people, and so that's what you'll begin to find out. But I do think the transfer portal will remain a large part of what they do every year, and certainly the success of Kenneth Walker and some other kids will, I think, be something that's intriguing to other transfers.
So, Graham, number 7 in the country. Ohio State now coming up next. Ohio State, the last 4 years, has dominated this game and won 5 straight. What's the feel around East Lansing for the matchup itself? Where do the Spartans have confidence? Where do they need to be a little bit more careful?
Yeah, it's kind of a nervous excitement. I mean, I think they've been on all sides of this. They've been thumped when they had some hope, and they've pulled massive upsets when they didn't have much. So it's a very, it's a fan base that's certainly not talking any trash. And I think, the thing about Michigan State is I think they have to be their best. I don't think they have to be something they haven't been. They're going to need Ohio State to play an imperfect game, but they kind of have to be the best versions of themselves defensively. And what I mean by that, when you look at their best results and best games this year, they've given up a lot of yards. But when you look at yards per play and you look at where those yards happen, not in the red zone, and you look at the sort of opportunistic nature of pressure and sacks and turnovers, and they've been pretty good in that. And that's what they're going to have to be, sort of the best version of that. And, Ohio State has had some games where they haven't been great in the red zone, notably against Penn State. And so they're going to have to get Ohio State kicking field goals. And I think they have enough offense to get into the 30s on Ohio State. They've gotten to the 30s on just about everybody. But I don't think they can put a 50 spot on Ohio State, and I think Ohio State can put a 50 spot on them. So that kind of tells you, they're going to need Ohio State to be in a reachable number.
What a division that has been, with what Ohio State's doing, Michigan's doing. Michigan's been better. Michigan State, Penn State sitting back there going, hey, we're pretty good too, but they can't crack the top 20 right now because that division is so tough. And I know Michigan State has Penn State. It got to finish now, right? You got to finish the deal because it's been a special year.
Yeah, no, it's been. Vegas had them as a 4.5 over/under win, and I thought that was low. Just given you could tell based on some of the transfers they brought in, and I thought they were a 6-7 win team maybe, but you didn't see this. Nobody knew Kenneth Walker, at least outside. Nobody knew Kenneth Walker was this good. Nobody, the quarterback, the redshirt sophomore Peyton Thorne, has been really grown and better than some expected, and their offensive line has been that's been an area that just crippled them for years, and they've been not great, but much more sound than in recent years. And so there were a lot of things that kind of came together, but there were some things you could see that you thought they had a chance to be competitive. No, but nobody saw this, and nobody saw. Kenneth Walker, he's an equalizer in a lot of ways. You look at the Michigan game, and they didn't have Michigan's defensive front was torturing Michigan State, and they had guys that MSU couldn't deal with. And the equalizer was Walker, who had those 2 great, actually 3 late touchdown runs, one for 58 yards, and that was the guy Michigan didn't have, and that's the guy a lot of teams don't have. And so they're going to need some of that from him. But I also think this is going to have to be a day where their young quarterback is and he's a cerebral kid who's got a good accuracy and understands everything in front of him, but he's going to have his best game.
Graham, thank you. Appreciate your time. Graham Couchy covers Michigan State, Lansing State Journal. Been with us a couple of different times during the college football season and when we come back. Max Olson, theathletic.com college football writer, national writer. He's next every Thursday, most every Thursday, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
New cars and trucks are coming. New car inventory is low, but GM just announced they will release a steady flow of vehicles through the fall. Now is the time to get on Richard Carr's inbound vehicle list. Choose your inbound vehicle, get on the list, and get your car or truck first. Call Richard Carr Motors or go online to choose your inbound vehicle today. Go to richardcarr.com for details.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country-style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from Select, Choice, or Prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strips, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Erie Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Hey guys, sports betting season is in full force with football season entrenched and the NBA and NHL underway and the Major League Baseball playoffs. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity like BetUS.com. BetUS has been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for almost 3 decades, thriving and paying their loyal customer base. That's BetUS.com, and they have loads of bonuses like ours at BetUS.com. 125% bonus on promo code SICK'EM125 or a 200% bonus if you use crypto on promo code SICK'EM200. BetUS, known as America's favorite sportsbook. NFL, college football, MLB, UFC, PGA Golf. They've got it all at BetUS.com. So go to BetUS.com today and use promo code SICK'EM125 or SICK'EM200. That's BetUS.com, promo code SICK'EM125 or SICK'EM200.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Max Olson of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Here comes a Penn State blitz. Lots of running room down the sideline. Eric All, the tight end. Will they catch him? No! Touchdown, Michigan! And the lead with 3.5 to go.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, if you have a question you'd like to ask Max Olson, text it to us at 254-339-1122, and we'll try to get that to him. We have plenty of our own. Max Olson, theathletic.com, national writer, covers college football, 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. So what I saw where Sam Kahn wrote a lengthy piece on the Texas Tech broadcasters. We've discussed it. We didn't spend an entire, too much time on it. I listened to the audio. Max, do you feel like the Big 12 did the right thing? And your thoughts on just the story itself in this year of so much in college football?
Yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on. And my reception's a little spotty, so if you lose me, I apologize. But, it's a strange deal. I was watching that game. You saw there was clearly a lot of outrage among Tech fans about a bunch of calls that were reviewed and went Iowa State's way. I don't know if those calls necessarily were all wrong, but certainly the Texas Tech radio crew was fed up and went pretty crazy about it. And from folks I've talked to in the Big 12, it seems the issue here is not being critical of officiating in the radio broadcast or Bob Bowlesby or even trying to say the Big 12 wants the other team to win or anything like that. I think the real issue there was that they took that extra step of reading off the names of everybody on the officiating crew on the broadcast. And I know those names are public record; they're on the front page of the box score and all that. But I think that there's maybe a little bit of a fear that could incite people a little bit, especially if Texas Tech had lost that game. So you don't want to see that happen. It's not like the Big 12 is monitoring all of these radio calls and trying to gotcha anybody on this stuff. But I think they felt like that one crossed the line, and I get where they're coming from, but certainly one of those things that is, infuriated and probably brought together that Texas Tech fan base.
Max, we've been talking about this for the last couple of days with, Justin Fuentes out at Virginia Tech and, who fits into what job. Do you see Tom Herman sneaking his way into this cycle at all?
That's a good question. Certainly what we're seeing right now, too, is that some of these schools that want to get the jump start on it, like you've seen with Clay Helton and Jim Moore getting jobs, that those people that are not currently in college roles, maybe it's a little easier to get in contact with them and feel them out. I've heard that Tom Herman's pretty happy with his his role in the NFL right now. Certainly, there's a pretty good chance the Bears staff gets fired at the end of this year, based on just sort of all the displeasure people have in Chicago with Matt Nagy. But I've heard he's pretty happy in the role he's got. But sure, we are heading towards a really, really crazy coaching carousel. As y'all know, I'm sure you talk about it every day. I can certainly see him and his agent wanting to feel out what's out there, especially if there are a bunch of jobs changing in the state of Texas.
So, Max, one of those guys that's been rumored, obviously, is Dave Aranda because of the success that Baylor's had last weekend. Big opportunity against Oklahoma. Needed to win to stay alive in the Big 12 race. And, they don't beat Oklahoma very often. Just the fourth time they've done so. But it was pretty impressive. What were your thoughts on the Bears and Sooners and now the loop that throws the Big 12 for in some ways?
Yeah, very, very impressive. Wasn't shocked by that outcome. And I don't know. I don't think that necessarily means that Oklahoma's fraudulent or anything like that. I just think Baylor had a great plan for them and executed it well. Probably could have won by even more points if you execute on some of the stuff early in the game there and take advantage of some of your opportunities. But that was the final score wasn't some massive blowout, but I thought that was a pretty impressive butt kicking. And I mean, I don't know. You guys have seen both of them up front now. Who do you think's better, Oklahoma State or Oklahoma?
Oklahoma State.
I think Oklahoma State still gets that edge. I mean, their numbers, and I think
so too.
Yeah, I do.
I think their defense is just obviously it's not even a comparison with OU, and I think their offense, Max Spencer Sanders, is just kind of managing the game. Run game super strong, and I think their receivers, they don't have like a name guy like they have in the past, but they've got a bunch of just really good young guys.
Yeah, and they dealt with so many injuries at receiver at the start of the season, like their six top guys all getting hurt and missing games, and that threw Spencer Sanders off a little bit in terms of his production and accuracy and all that. I think that's gotten a little bit better. Certainly, Jaylen Warren has allowed them to have the best rushing offense in the Big 12 in league play. But you look at some of the stats offensively. These guys, I know it's weird to see, but like these guys are playing like Wisconsin. I mean, they really are. They have an elite defense that is really sound in all phases of defense, all metrics, and they just play to it by running the ball. They're running the ball more than anybody in the Big 12 right now, and the pass they're throwing it okay. Sanders is playing okay, but man, they play great defense and run the ball and certainly play to their strengths. And I think it's they destroyed TCU and now. If they can beat Texas Tech this week, they're in terrific shape here to, be in contention for going to Arlington and maybe even the playoff.
It would be, they had that first game, which is Stillwater, Baylor and Oklahoma State. And Baylor, of course, has had that ugly moment when they were destroyed by TCU. And Oklahoma State has not had that. In fact, speaking of which, I think both defenses are really good, but Baylor's had that throw-up game. Oklahoma State has not. You wrote about that, about where they are statistically, and you took them all the way back to the Ndamukong Suh 2009 Nebraska Big 12 team.
Yeah, you look at just look at conference play here, and Oklahoma State, had some struggles in September. They weren't very impressive in their non-conference slate, and it wasn't even a very hard non-conference slate. Not very impressive, but since then, since Big 12 play began, that defense is holding Big 12 offenses to 15 points per game, and from a yards per play standpoint, the points per game and yards per play, best since we've seen in this conference since 2009. Now you got to sustain it, obviously, and you got to play Oklahoma, and maybe Oklahoma puts a lot of points and yards upon you. But they have held every team they've played this year under 400 yards and under 25 points, and the only other defense in the country that can say that is Georgia. So it's been super impressive to watch. They're great against the pass. They're great against the run. You guys saw it live. I mean, it's just really hard to move the ball on them.
Yeah, they're like a wood chipper. It's the best way to look at it. Paul, you used to use that word when it comes to playing or fighting up against a defense like that. Again, it's Max Olson, theathletic.com college football writer with us.
Max, what did you think about Virginia Tech and Washington this week? Both opened up, and those are pretty decent jobs, pretty good ones, and with a lot of potential. Who do you think are fits for those? And are you surprised, maybe even a little bit, by Washington moving on from Jimmy Lake so soon?
Yeah, not surprised by those firings. The Fuente one seemed like it was heading that way kind of all season, and they've had moments in the past where they contemplated whether it's time to move on. I think that's a good job. I mean, and I think that's probably part of why they're making the change, is just a belief they can be a lot better and be one of the premier programs in the ACC. And certainly on the East Coast, there's going to be, I would think, a lot of coaches that would make sense for that, whether it's Jamie Chadwell or you go on down the list. There's lots of folks I think that probably would look at that job and say there's real potential there. Washington, also not surprising, because Jimmy Lake has just had a really bad year, has made a lot of mistakes, and was suspended certainly for their last game. I think that Chris Peterson had raised that thing to a really high level. They thought that Jimmy Lake could sustain it by being passed the torch there, and it just really didn't work. So very curious to see, how big a swing they take on that. But, there's a lot of, sort of top 5, top 10 type of jobs that could potentially open or are already open. But those are two really good ones, probably in that next tier of schools that I think a lot of coaches are going to go after.
Max, 57-56 in overtime down in Austin last weekend. Lance Leipold and the Jayhawks with a signature win. I don't think that it was a total shock, just given the losing streak Texas was on, but still it was a shock to see Jayhawks go down in Austin and get a W. Your thoughts on what unfolded, the storybook ending with a guy who hadn't even played offense, and obviously there's a lot of negative fallout for UT and Steve Sarkisian right now. What do you make of the result for both clubs?
Yeah, it was just really insane watching that. Excuse me. Just insane watching that unfold over the course of the game. And it's not one of those where, oh, man, Kansas, made it close to the last second. No, Kansas was, beating them pretty good for that whole game. It was not very fluky how that went. And what's wild is that, Kansas has had the worst Power 5 defense in the country, and Texas was even worse in that game. Just really has fallen apart on that side of the ball. Not a lot of great talent there, but certainly the confidence is plunged. And it's surprising because, their DC, Pete Kwiatkowski, has always been very good. So it's hard to know what to make of that. Certainly you've seen Chris Delcani and other people kind of come out in support of Sark here after 10 games. Hard for me to believe Texas, you look at that schedule and what they got left, I don't think they're going to a bowl game. They got to win out. You got West Virginia, I think, in K-State. I just can't see them winning both of those games. So it's going to be a pretty harsh offseason, I think, in Austin, that makes you reassess the staff a little bit and probably kill some of that recruiting momentum that you should have in that first full cycle.
Max Olson, theathletic.com college football writer. Max, do you have a Heisman vote?
I do.
All right. Have you? I have one too, and I'm honored to have one. But is it almost on every other? And we don't have the vote yet. And I'm always until the last second. But is it been one of those pendulums or roller coasters? 1 week, one guy, or Pickett or Walker III or Bryce Young, and you just can't grab your hands around somebody yet?
Absolutely. I have no idea who I'm going to fill out in that ballot. I really don't. And sometimes, like from the media standpoint, I know we can be kind of prisoners of the moment, and you kind of wonder, is somebody just going to place well in one of these conferences that in front of all the folks? It still feels so wide open. And so, I certainly feel like, I need to do my homework to,
I think we lost Max. He said he was in one of those spots. Okay. Yeah, well, he answered
people
it.
kind of by default had Kenneth Walker as their number one, and maybe he'll be the guy, but I feel like there's still room for somebody to rise up here.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Max, anything else? Max Olson, theathletic.com national college football writer with us on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Yeah, I always enjoy this segment with Max because we can cover a lot of ground. And if his reception was a little better, I was going to ask him, Michigan State, Ohio State, and get into a couple more games. But there's some good stuff there. And I'll talk off the radar a little bit about the Heisman odds and where we are with that right now. It kind of depends on where you look.
Please do, because I have no idea either.
I mean, depending on where you look, you might see one guy above the other, but for the most part, it's just a cluster. I mean, it's just a cluster of guys with no real leader in the clubhouse whatsoever. But, I'll run down the candidates and kind of where they sit here in about 30 minutes or so.
All right, at 4:30, Mickey Spagnola, Cowboys in Kansas City ought to be one heck of a game. Could end up being one of those 37-35, 43-40, and then again, who knows? Kansas City looks like they got a little tuned up with what they did against the Raiders this past weekend, but they have absolutely not been by any means in the mode that they were the last couple of years when they won a Super Bowl and then lost in a Super Bowl as well.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point about that West Virginia-Texas game. That's a bowl game. That's a bowl eligibility game. Whoever wins that is going bowling, and whoever loses that will have to win their final game. And West Virginia, last I looked, I haven't looked today, but last I looked, they were slight favorites. I think given what we saw last week, I mean, West Virginia hasn't exactly been super impressive by any means, but they've been more impressive than Texas has as of late. And
it's in Morgantown.
And, they just beat Iowa State there a couple weeks back, and they're good enough to beat Texas. There's no doubt. Texas is good enough to beat them too. But, that's a really interesting game because somebody is going to go in the final weekend, fingers crossed, having to make a bowl game or having a long offseason. And for both those programs with Neil Brown, I don't think he's on any hot seat right now, but there's definitely enough chatter of okay, where's this going exactly, And then for Sarkisian, obviously, I mean, I'm not ready to put him on the hot seat just yet, but man, that thing is starting to at least get a little bit warm. And I know it's too soon to really go too knee-jerk, but I'm really curious what would happen if they lost these last two games, especially if they lost them badly. Because, man, you go into the offseason with a 7-game losing streak.
Yeah, that would be insane.
If they lose one of them, they're not going to a bowl.
Right.
So that alone, I think what happened with the Kansas game, I saw people Sarkisian's on the hot seat. They'll fire Sarkisian this year. And blah, blah. I said, no. I think what happens with Steve Sarkisian this year is that the Kansas win, whatever goodwill of – when he gets asked questions, well, Coach, how do you feel after spring training? I like what we have. I like to see that. Well, the Texas fans are going to be like, yeah, shut up. That's what it's going to be. Nobody's going to hear about his optimism, and they're going to have to prove it on the field, which is what you have to do anyway. But all of his goodwill will be gone, which is unfortunate, but that's the
how
kind of
often
works.
Do you have a coach 10 games into his first year? And believe me, even though Baylor only played 9 games, I know some of you wanted to know about Dave Aranda because it was not very good. But 10 games into his year.
Matt Rule was a bust.
Yeah, and 10 games into his year, and he's having the AD and the president or the board of regents or whatever, and Kevin Eltife and then Del Conte having to put out words of support for him.
You know what that did? That actually
the back in the ground. Those boosters and donors who are the ones that run that program are hot as hell right now.
That's what that actually did. When they came out with those statements, especially the first one from Del Conte, I said, oh, well, he really is starting to approach the hot seat. That's what that told me, not the opposite. It didn't tell me that, oh, no, we're giving him plenty of time and we're going to let him build and do all that. It told me that, clearly there's enough angst and negativity going on that we have to address this, which is not a good sign. Anytime you have to give a vote of confidence that is not a good sign.
And he's got, Jimmy Lake, now he doesn't get a chance to redo it, but he lost to Montana. Jimmy, he would have had to win a national title for them to forget about that. Matt Rule lost to Liberty. And to UTSA, but to Liberty, the Liberty game, Matt Rule, for the rest of his life, no matter that he almost won the Big 12 for Baylor a couple years later, there are people with Matt Rule's like, yeah, but he lost to Liberty that first week. And you're like, well, buddy. There were extenuating circumstances. Dave Aranda might be the one who has the fortune of saying, shoot, COVID. You can say COVID, which is great for all those coaches last year in the COVID year.
Michigan State struggled last year. Some of the best teams in the
Justin
country.
Fuente had
Penn State struggled.
Justin Fuente had Old Dominion, right?
Yeah.
So Old Dominion, that game was a pockmark that he was never going to be able to wash off or get off.
From Steve, by the way, for a Frog fan again. He mentioned earlier about Tom Herman. He didn't want Herman at TCU. Appreciate the show. Thanks for the comments. I wish TCU had a good program. They've just been kind of slipping. And that's why eventually this change, and then Patterson probably imploded a little bit himself with some of the things that he used to be able to do that when you're losing, it's not as funny. And you get a little bit tired of it. But maybe a breath of fresh air is what you need, but Patterson gave them a hell of a run, no question.
Yeah, whoever the next coach is, Sonny Dykes or whoever it ends up being, they're going to be set up pretty nicely. You've got some good talent on campus. I don't know what's going to happen with Zach Evans. He's only going to be around at best another year, and maybe not even that. That's fine, but you probably feel pretty good about Chandler Morris, although you want to bring in some more competition around him because he's not a sure thing by any means. Quentin Johnston, you probably only got another year with him. So, I think next year they're set up pretty okay. Obviously there's a lot to address, though, on defense, too. That was the last thing to kind of fall that really started to mark the end of the Gary Patterson era, was when you couldn't even rely on a solid defense anymore. And that's when people are like, whoa, wait a second here. We can deal with, erratic offense, but bad defense in Fort Worth, that's not going to fly. He's clearly lost it. But, yeah, he had a firm handle on that program for a long time. That's a good job. It's a good location. All that. And I think there are, as much as some guys want that splash big program job, there are the benefits of being a smaller private university in a talent-rich state like Texas. So Sonny Dykes or whoever, I think they're going to be set up really well. It's obviously a very important hire for that AD. And Jeremiah Donati, it's going to be, kind of what he's judged on, I think, moving forward is who that is. But
I ranked it second yesterday.
Huh?
All the things you said is why I put it second, just in the fact of there's a lot of things you don't have to deal with and that you could reap the benefits for, and you don't really have to dig that big of, a cavern to find the treasure.
Yeah, I'll say this about TCU. I think they're going to look back years from now. It's going to be the same time period that they look back on, but with Baylor fans, they look back on this last, close to a decade now. And it's going to be marked by a scandal, but it's also going to be marked by some terrific head coaching hires and being able to it's been a roller coaster, but it's had as many ups as it has had downs, and it's had some pretty big ups, and Dave Aranda's got them in line for even more moving forward. But on the TCU side of things, while Baylor was dealing with the Brow stuff and the scandal and the fallout and the NCAA thing hanging over their heads, and then here's Jim Groby's an interim, and here comes Matt Rule, and Matt Rule's gone, and here comes Dave Aranda, and Dave Aranda debuts in a COVID year. They're dealing with all that. What did TCU deal with during that same stretch?
Nothing.
Not a single freaking thing. No. And they played basically the same level of football.
And they let it get loose.
And it all started when Browse was fired. That rivalry was white hot. It was one of the better rivalries in college football. It was heated. And those two teams hated each other.
They fed off each other.
They did. They fed off each other, and it was like once Art was gone, TCU should have grabbed that ball and just taken off with it. And
because they were recruiting the same players too, weren't they?
Yes, but instead they grabbed it. They kind of made one first down run, then got stopped for losses of 5 and 6, made another positive run, got stopped for losses of 5 and 6. They took no advantage of it, and I think that's going to be something you look back on, especially considering during that same time period, Texas was down. Oklahoma was great, but Oklahoma State got great this year. They weren't necessarily this good the last few years.
They had a window of opportunity.
They had a window, and they just threw a baseball through it instead of climbing through. And I think that's going to be something that they look back on with a little bit of regret.
They were able to continue to beat Texas until this year, and they were always dominating Baylor for the most part, except 19, and even those were that was an amazing game. But, you might have let something slip through your hands. Baylor keeps punching back. They do. All right, when we come back, the Cowboys and Chiefs, we mentioned it a minute ago. We'll see. Kansas City and the Cowboys. Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Mark, go ahead.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC, Cadillac. They got a lot.
Well, which one do you want us to do?
We're in break 4.
All right. I've already done them.
Okay, well, whatever. Whatever you want to do.
Go ahead, Craig.
All right, Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They've got a lot of great deals going on right now over at Richard Carr, and they are, obviously like most dealerships around the country dealing with some supply chain challenges. Cars and trucks are hard to find, and you guys are both still on camera. The good news is General Motors has announced the production is slowed. Cars and trucks are coming, and now is the time to contact Richard Carr to get your name on a new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac as they're being shipped. Drive a new car or truck sooner when you get on Richard Carr's inbound vehicle list, and you get your car or truck first as they arrive. Among the options, they have the Sierra. If you're looking for a pickup, the Sierra is the best truck on the road. It's got an ideal combination of power and strength, as well as refinement and luxury. If you're looking for a roomy SUV, how about the Buick lineup of SUVs offering size and versatility and a lot of different options as well? Or maybe you want the ultimate combination of sophistication and power with a new Cadillac XT6 or Escalade. Cars and trucks are coming, and those are just some of the options. So call or contact Richard Carr online with what you want and get on that inbound vehicle list today to get your vehicle before anyone else. But if you are looking to save and drive today, you're not worried about a new vehicle, you just need a car. Well, they have plenty of premium pre-owned cars and trucks available on the lot as well, all of them going through a 172-point inspection before ever hitting the lot. And Richard Carr says yes when dozens of other lenders say no. If you're here in the greater Waco area, Richard Carr is your local hometown dealership, so give them a chance to earn your business with great prices, free oil changes on new purchases, and superior service after the sale. Richard Carr Motors, owned, operated, and run by loyal and proud Baylor Bears.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. In a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness continues to add more weapons to your getting or staying in shape arsenal with 8 brand new treadmills ready for you to run or walk a mile or 2 or 10. And with the explosion of interest in pickleball with instructors Joe Rosa and Jody Thurman with more courts available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with large flat screens stretched across the weight room with Wi-Fi available, their own app to enjoy news, business, weather, or sports. Everywhere you look, there's energy, passion, and commitment. New touchless water fountains outside of each locker room, and all the locker rooms with showers, sauna, and whirlpool. Upgraded PA system throughout the world-class tennis courts with a youth academy led by pro Britt Coleman. Fitness and tennis merchandise available and a tanning bed. I promise you'll look and feel better. You just need to walk through the front door. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with personal trainers Christy London and Randall Corley. 40-plus group exercise classes, including twice-a-week boot camp. It's time to react today, not tomorrow. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Brad, what makes you different than anyone else, in your opinion, as far as what Boozer's does?
The fact that I own the jewelry store, anything I need to do, will do, or can do, I can do it. The buck stops with me, whereas a lot of places you have to go up the corporate command and corporate channel. Well, if you come in and want to make a deal, we sit there and we make the deal.
And you can find whatever someone's looking for, correct?
Anything is obtainable. I don't care what brand it is, what size it is, how much it costs, large or small. Anything is obtainable, and we can definitely get that in for you to see, look at, or buy.
Do you have the opportunity if people have to pay things off as far as a layaway program? What about what you have with financing?
Absolutely. We have 12-month no interest financing. We have layaway. If you want to pay with Bitcoin, I can take Bitcoin now. So if there's any way you want to pay for it, we can find a way out to make it work.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Prescott on the keeper, walks in, touchdown, Dallas.
It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com. Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
All right, here we go. This 4 o'clock hour rolls into the last part of it. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, right there smack in the middle of Frisco, the Star. Cowboys, of course, in Kansas City coming up this weekend. Mickey, when the schedule turns to November, you put all these wins or losses, whatever, in what column, and then all of a sudden you look up. And to me, this is now when the NFL starts. Not that there haven't been some really fun matchups and really good games, but is this is the stretch drive that starts? Is it start now?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a stressful one. Because this is the time of year when the Cowboys have to play those 3 games in 12 days. Now, everybody, I believe, plays a game on a Thursday, so they've got to face something similar to this. But it's tough, no matter what, when you play Sunday on the road, home on Thursday, and then and then on the road again next Thursday. So the Cowboys are going to hit that stretch soon. When they also have to play 3 consecutive road games. So this is the part of the season when I saw the schedule, I circled it. Some circled the season opener against Tampa Bay, but this is the kind of the danger zone right now when you're stressed physically and have to play some pretty good teams, knowing that you got the Chiefs, the Raiders, at New Orleans coming up.
Mickey, defensively, I know along the defensive line, it's still going to be kind of an adventure, especially playing a Chiefs team that's found itself on offense. But I guess the good news is all 3, Gregory, Tank, and Gallimore appear to be coming back about the same time, huh?
Well, yes, and unfortunately, it's not soon enough. It'll be maybe after the New Orleans game. I don't know if anybody will get back after Thanksgiving. But, to me, if you're not playing this Sunday, then chances are with one practice next week, you're not going to get back in time for Thanksgiving. So, at the earliest for New Orleans. And then I would think for sure after that, because then you've got 10 days in between games. And they need those guys back. They need them this Sunday. Because I think a pass rush on Patrick Mahomes is going to be ultimately important. And he's listed as limited. We'll find out a little bit more how they designate him for the game. I think because he's limited so far that they'll list him as questionable and then see what he can do on Saturday. But again, either way, they got to make sure Terrence Steele's ready to go. Just in case.
Yeah, that's one of those things. As good as they have played, as well as they have played, and who they have been, you all of a sudden, you kind of see not a crack, but you have Tyron Smith go out, so then you got to shift around. It just takes one more, either Martin, although they have replaced Collins and he's back, but isn't that just how fragile success can be in the NFL because of what we've seen with that offensive line before?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that has a lot to do with this offense's success compared to last year when they were dealing with, at times 3 starters missing at the same time, and 2 of them for all but 2 games. So, the health of that offensive line is key to this offense. keeping Dak upright, giving Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard a half a chance to get past the line of scrimmage and do their deal. I would think because of what you said, David, the Cowboys will be very cautious with Tyron Smith, not trying to get him, force him back into play sooner than need be.
Mickey, have you, in your years of covering the NFL, ever seen a game?
After the first two possessions, the Cowboys had their number days between games.